One.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the June 1st Board of Health meeting. This is Judy Giorgio, the health agent for the town of Chatham. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public is permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the number on your screen, channel 18. The number is 1-508-945-4410, and the conference ID number is 762-1961#. Despite our best efforts, in some cases, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Please mute your phone speakers until we ask for questions or comments. Okay, now I'm going to turn the meeting over to our Board of Health Chairman, John Beckley.
Thank you, Judy. Tonight we have 6 items on our agenda. I'd like to start those with item agenda number 1, which is a request for permission to distribute home learning kits provided by Cape Cod Children's Place Incorporated. I think we all got a copy of a letter of request from Lucy Gilmore as part of our packet, and it seems pretty straightforward. Judy, do you have any comments on this request?
No, I don't. Ed, I don't know if Lucy, I did invite her to the meeting. I'm not sure if she's on the call. If not, I think it is a very straightforward request. They've outlined some precautions that they're going to take. It's going to be a curbside pickup for these kindergarten activity kits for Chatham Elementary School. So, no, I think if you've got a chance to read through it, it's pretty straightforward, and I have no concerns.
Any other
recommend
board members like to talk on this? Ron?
No, I think it's a good thing.
Any
Make
other
the motion to accept.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we get a second?
Second it, Alan.
Second,
Okay,
Ed Sheehan.
good. Okay, Alan got the
Noble,
second.
I think your Noble is muted. Oh,
No, yeah, I unmuted.
okay.
But you
Okay,
know, I can't see anybody's picture. I don't know if there's something I'm supposed to press here or,
I don't have my camera on. I don't
oh,
think.
okay, no one's got their camera on, I guess.
okay. Any more board members want to comment on this request for approval?
Yeah, this is Noble. I read through it and I'm fine with it.
Okay. Would anybody from the public like to comment before we vote? All right. Hearing none, when I call your name, please let me know whether you vote to approve this. Noble,
Approve?
Alan,
Approve.
Ron,
Approve.
Ed Sheehan,
Approve.
and I approve the request. So we have 5 Board of Health members. I don't know if I did roll call properly before I started, did I? But for the record, on roll call, we've got Noble Hanson, Dr. Noble Hanson, Dr. Alan Ward. We have Ron. We have Ed Sheehan and myself, all 5 of us on the call for tonight's meeting. So the item number 1 has passed. Let's go to item number 2, which is an update and a discussion regarding COVID-19 with Dr. Robert Duncanson. Bob?
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Health, Judy, and members of the public that are listening in. So today, Monday, June 1st, we have 6,230,000 roughly cases of COVID-19 worldwide, with a little over 373,000 deaths. In the US, we have approximately 1.8 million cases and 104,000 deaths. In Massachusetts, as of 4 p.m. yesterday, we were at 96,965 cases and 6,846 deaths. Today's information is not yet been posted by the state. Usually it comes out about 4 o'clock every afternoon, but they have indicated that there's going to be some new data in today's, and so it will be delayed. So right now, the best we have is yesterday's case counts. As of yesterday, we had 1,312 cases in Barnstable County with 116 deaths. And so far in Chatham specific, we had 15 known official cases and we had 1 death. And I can tell you that out of those 15 cases that we've had, and those are cases since this pandemic began affecting the Cape and Chatham, most of those cases have now cleared or recovered, if you will. We have approximately 3 to 4 active cases in Chatham in itself that are being either quarantined and therefore followed by VNA for us. So while 15, is a higher number, as I've said many times, those are not all active cases. Many of those have completed their quarantine period and therefore are considered recovered. Couple things that happened over the weekend, or late Friday and over the weekend. The state issued guidance for restaurants and hotels and motels. The state put that information out. They have not indicated when that new guidance is going to take effect, but it is part of phase 2. And right now, the most prevalent date we have for phase 2 is next Monday, or the 8th of June, provided that all the metrics that the state is monitoring continue to be favorable. And just a few minutes ago, the state issued the first guidance for camps. And these are recreational camps. These are not residential or overnight camps. We did get a heads up on that earlier this afternoon in a conference call. That we were going to get kind of the first view of that information before it goes out to the general public and gets posted on the state's website. So I can tell you that information did just come out, and we'll be reviewing that and seeing to what impact it may have on any planned, day camp kind of facilities in Chatham. And we'll get that information out to those organizations once the state releases it out for on their website and through the Camp Association. As you all know, the mandatory downtown mask order has been in effect about a week now. Over the weekend, we got a number of emails, both pro and con, for that in terms of we need to extend it. And I know that's going to be a discussion later. We should extend it all the way down Main Street to the Lighthouse. And on the other side of the coin, we got comments from people that it doesn't really have any effect. There's no enforcement. It's limited in a number of people that are abiding by it. So given the fact that we're hearing for both sides of the coin, I'd say, we're probably right about in the sweet spot then. As we frequently do with a lot of regulations, if you hear from both sides, you're probably pretty well where you need to be. So we can have more of that discussion later on. So I think I'll take any questions at this point, recognizing you got a couple of these other topics on your agenda.
Any questions from the public?
Yeah, I had a question for Dr. Bob, John.
Go.
Dr. Bob brought up last time this COVID-19 beach safety rules, which came from the Cape Cod Reopening Task Force, and there was a mention in like the fourth item about masks, and it says masks are not required to be worn while swimming or sunbathing. And that the issue of that exemption of not wearing a mask while for sunbathing is one that came up at the selectmen meeting. And that's a question I have for Bob. Can he clarify what the intent is there?
Yeah, the intent of it is if you were, laying on a blanket or sitting in a chair, and you were practicing social distancing from other groups on the beach, with the guidance being about 12 feet between towels and whatnot, you would not need to wear a mask in that situation. If you were, walking along the beach and social distancing was questionable, or you're walking back and forth to a parking lot, then the guidance is you should be wearing a mask.
Okay, so you're not concerned about that being ambiguous, in that if you're on the beach in the sun, that you could think that you're sunbathing and basically you don't have to wear a mask on the beach?
Noble, I'm always concerned about ambiguity and people's interpretations of things. Right now there is so much information coming out for people, that most people can't even keep up with it. Judy and I, and we're dealing with it day in and day out. We have trouble keeping up with it. There may be some more guidance coming out. There's going to be signage going up at the beaches. It's really just going to be continuing public education. As you know, that sign proposal came from the Cape Cod Reopening Task Force, and one of the things they're trying to do is, kind of standardize across the entire Cape, so that, when residents and visitors might be moving around on the Cape, although we hope they're not doing much of that, they see consistent signage and information from place to place. So yeah, those signs, unfortunately, as far as I know, are already in production, because last week when asked, I inquired at Barnstable County, they said they were going to produce them and they would have them to the towns hopefully this week. So unfortunately, I don't think we have a lot of opportunity to maybe clarify that a little bit. But we can certainly clarify that with the information that we put out on Channel 18 and through the website and whatnot.
Right. So the intent is that the governor's order for mask wearing outdoors would basically be in effect on the beach, with the exemptions of swimming and underage and that sort of thing.
Right. And again, if you're sitting there or laying on a towel, you don't necessarily have to have a mask on, provided, if you're within your own family unit and we're practicing the 12 feet between towel areas, no, you would not. If you're just sitting there or laying there, you would not have to have a mask on.
Okay, that's good. And I don't want to spend too much time here, but just real quick, can you go over what the reopening task force authority is? Can they make rules for the town, or is it basically just guidance?
It's basically just guidance. They don't necessarily have any regulatory authority. And this question actually came up in a conference call last week with members of the task force. They don't have any regulatory authority. It's really the towns that have that. So they're really trying to provide guidance and consistent information to the towns to utilize.
Okay, good. And one last thing real quick. When I look at the reopening phases, the 14-day quarantine, if you're coming from out of state, is in effect through phase 2, and that rentals start to open up in phase 2 as well. So is that as you understand it?
Yes, that is still correct. The 14-day recommended quarantine period will remain in effect when the rentals and all first start opening. So, that was a topic of discussion last week with the state and DPH and all when they announced kind of the hotel and motel preliminary guidance. Does that mean people are going to have to come to, the Cape and require 3 weeks if they want a week's worth of vacation? Because The first two is going to be spent quarantined. That raises some questions as to whether or not, later this week or next week, there may be some change in that by the governor. But right now, that's the way it stands, the 14-day quarantine for out-of-staters. But, folks will be able to book rental accommodations or hotels and motels.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay,
That's all.
any further questions for Dr. Jenkinson? If not, we'll move to the third agenda item, which is an update on the Body Strong Fitness enforcement update. And I will call Board of Health members' attention to the fact that everybody should have received today a copy of an immediate cease and desist order signed by Judy, which is going to be served when, Judy?
Hi, that was actually served about an hour ago. It was hand delivered and it will also be sent certified mail.
Okay.
So it was the cease and desist order, which was the last step of the procedures that the state has laid out for enforcement. The next step is some type of court action. We have been in discussions with our town council as to how to proceed. So we will be talking with him again, hopefully in the next day or two, and there may be a court injunction or something along those lines taken. We'll go to court to ask for an injunction against them. There's some discussion on who gets named as in this case, and if the state will be named as people. Bob, maybe you can better explain that. The state, DPH, the governor, as people in the injunction.
Yeah, this is Bob. Because really this question is bigger than the town of Chatham. This is the essential business order is not a town of Chatham regulation. It's a state regulation. It's a state order. So in reality, you would want to have the state involved in any court action. So in addition to the gym being named, we would also more than likely name the governor and the Department of Public Health and others individually, to make sure that this is properly pursued. I can tell you that, we did have a conference call with town council at the end of last week in anticipation of the cease and desist order going out. There are some interesting legal questions that, need to be thought about. And this town council has reached out to the state attorney general's office. He has reached out to the Department of Labor Standards, which is one of the enforcing agencies in this whole discussion, as well as he has reached out to the town council in Oxford, Mass, which is where the first gym opened in defiance of the governor's order, to kind of talk about how they're doing things and whatnot. So all that is in the works. It is all fluid from day to day. And as Judy indicated, we will be having a conference, another call with town council, probably on Wednesday of this week, to see where we're at in the process, and whether or not, the town is going to pursue legal action, under what time frame we're going to pursue it, whether or not there's been any changes with what's going on at the state and whatnot. So stay tuned. There's definitely more to come on this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bob. Any further questions from board members on the status of the Body Strong Fitness enforcement action?
No.
All right, let's move along. Item 4, a discussion on the outdoor seating and parking restriction relating to planning and zoning, and the possibility of Board of Health action in some way to help make that happen. And I need Judy to explain it, and or Bob in more detail.
Hi, so Katie Donovan, who's our Community Development Director, is on this call, and she will speak to you about this. But basically, we're looking for a way to facilitate easier ways for restaurants to have basically outdoor seating and then possibly outdoor display of goods in the downtown, all throughout Chatham. Being able to use parking areas for tables, because we're anticipating reduced seating inside. The first phase that restaurants are allowed to open, they're only allowed outdoor seating, so this is limiting them quite a bit. So let me ask Katie if she'd like to speak to this now.
Yes, thank you, Judy. Hi, everybody. This is Katie Donovan, Director of Community Development. And as Judy stated, we're trying to find ways to work with businesses to make it a little bit easier for them to implement the changes that they need to make to comply with the state requirements in order for them to open. And we are looking for, restaurants with, potential outdoor seating, either expanding the current seating that they have or adding seating because they don't have any. Or as Judy mentioned, potentially allowing, some retail locations to bring some of their wares to the outdoors to be able to provide for better social distancing on the inside of their establishments. So the issues that we're running into, though, is that, through our planning and zoning and historic business district bylaws and regulations, we don't really have an avenue at this point in time to allow businesses to quickly open up in these ways for the upcoming summer season. So we've been exploring what other communities are doing, and we had found that the town of Dennis, actually, Board of Health had taken a vote, an action just to allow for outdoor display of goods or seating within their parking areas. So ultimately, they were reducing the parking requirements through a Board of Health order. What we would propose, and we don't have any specific language or anything specific at this point, but Judy and I would work directly with our town council to come up with, if the Board of Health was inclined to do so, we would work with town council to bring back some language and make sure that what we were doing would be, that there would be no issues with it before we would bring it back to your board for a vote. And so the reason I'm here today is to see if there's a consensus among board members that that's something that they'd be willing to entertain before we put the effort in with town council. So that's all I have for now, but happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'd like to ask the Board of Health members whether they would be open to this suggestion that we help the merchants by using some of the regulatory or statutory authority that we currently have, provided it's vetted through the town council and through Judy and Kathleen Donovan. Members, what do people think?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to Katie about something. Ron Broman. Yeah, I heard somewhere that there was a plan, at least the people were looking at it, to make Main Street one way eastward. Is that anything you people are looking at, or is that just a rumor?
No, there was a proposal, if I may through the chair, there was a proposal that through the Merchants Association and Chamber of Commerce to the Board of Selectmen at their meeting last week. And we do have a working group that the town manager has set up, and that is something that we're looking at. I do not know if that will be what will happen. I think that we're working on right now bringing together a group of stakeholders, including the police and fire chiefs, as well as town staff and some of the merchants, and Judy is involved as well, to take a better look at this, a more in-depth look to see whether or not that's something that we would or that the town would be willing to consider. And then this group will actually make a recommendation back to the Board of Selectmen. We're hoping to do that in time for their June 16th meeting.
Okay. Any other Board of Health members have a comment or a position on the possibility of going forward, at least with a proposal? I'm fine with it personally. If anything we can do to help the merchants, I'm in favor of. But what other board members think?
This is Alan. I agree. I think it's fine.
Noble?
Yeah, there's no, yeah, no, I agree. I think it's fine. I had a question for Katie as to whether the proposal would, you would be clearing it through the police chief and the fire chief to make sure they don't have any issue with changing parking or sidewalk activity.
Sure. Actually, before we would do anything, we would actually run it by all staff as well, just to make sure that everybody was in agreement that it's something that could work for the town overall. And this is this would be an overall, for the entire town and not just for the Main Street area. There are plenty of businesses that actually may be able to expand outdoors without taking up any parking or, encroaching on any public way. So I think that, this is something that's, again, town-wide, but we would be bringing it before, all staff to take a look at before we would propose anything further.
So that means bringing it before the police and fire chief before you came and asked us for an approval?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Before we
okay.
would have you
And
vote if we would want.
I'm for it.
Okay, Ed, would you be okay with this?
I'm for it.
I think, Katie, that you have an indication that the Board of Health members are unanimous in being open to this, if we can help. So I would, I'd proceed.
Okay, great. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I'll work very closely with Judy and Dr. Bob, and we'll get something back to you as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 5, mandatory mask order. This was something that we had some other discussions about early on, and I felt it was time to come back to this and revisit the possibility of amending our initial order to include additional sections of town. Subsequent to that, we did receive additional comments in a variety of ways, most recently one today that Judy sent out to all Board of Health members. It's basically an email sent by a resident of Old Village. And in that, he does make a suggestion that we extend the requirement for wearing masks to that community. Judy, would you like to comment further? I know we had a couple of other individuals who contacted us.
Yeah, I mean, as Bob said at the beginning during his update, we've had kind of pro and con on this whole mask thing. My big concern about extending the mandatory to the entire downtown, including the Old Village, is just the ability to enforce. People are having concerns about people walking by their homes, and being concerned about that. But personally, from a public health standpoint, I don't think people, a group of 1 or 2 people walking by a home outside is really not a public health concern. I would be more supportive or concerned about areas where people congregate, such as the Lighthouse Overlook and the Fish Pier, where I think, perhaps extending it, and we've discussed about this in the past, to those areas for viewing the bar and also moving up and down the stairway to the beach there. But I'm a little uncomfortable with extending it to the entire village, or even all the way from Main Street and down Shore Road. So that's just my concerns. We are trying to come up with some guidance throughout the towns about enforcement on these things. It's enforcement, as you can imagine right now with police departments, is is a big concern in light of what's going on around the country. So we are trying not to, have confrontations where they're not needed and educate instead of enforce. So that's been the discussions that we've had today.
Okay, I'd like to hear more discussion from other Board of Health members. So in the mix, we have the option of doing nothing. We have the option of extending the original requirement to include the fish pier. We could also amend the initial order to include the fish pier and lighthouse overlook as well as the stairway. And then we have a request that we consider extending it all the way to the shore road and including the community old village, which includes certain streets, which are called School Street, Water Street, Silverleaf, Hallett, and Sunset. What do other board members think?
This is Alan. I think that we should extend it. I don't know how far, but I know that Bob Lear lives at School Street, and he says no one stops at School Street. They go all the way to the lighthouse usually. So at least that, and I'm not sure every nook and cranny of the old village should be required, but because you can get some social distancing on the road. And then again, the fish pier is a similar thing to downtown, that people are all going to be up there unless they require limited people up there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know what the policy would be regarding the fish pier. Bob Duncanson, is the fish pier virtually ready to be used?
I'll be providing an update to the Board of Selectmen on the status of the fish pier observation deck tomorrow. It is very close. We are still waiting for some ADA issues relative to the elevator or the personal lift to be finalized, but we're getting very close. But right now, we are not setting a time to reopen it, mainly because we do have an order from the governor to limit gatherings to less than 10 people. And as anybody frequently knows, there's always way more than 10 people down on that observation deck. So right now, we could not open it anyway, unless that order is changed. And like Judy said, there's a difference between education and enforcement. I think when we first talked about the mandatory order downtown, we recognized that we were not going to be out there issuing tickets and writing people up. We'd rely on education and peer pressure to do that. I've been downtown multiple times, different times of the day or night, and for the most part, you see people complying. There's always some people going through, and then it becomes a question of, did they just come out of a house and they're walking down the street quickly, or did they just come from a side street or whatever? Or do they have a medical condition that prohibits them from wearing a mask, which we all know is part of this whole thing.
Right.
So I think, if there is a sense that we should expand this to other locations, we just have to be cognizant of the fact that, education is one thing, signage is one thing, but there isn't going to be a whole lot of, active enforcement, if you will. We did have a conversation with Provincetown earlier regarding, kind of what they're doing, because as you probably know, they were one of the first, communities to implement a similar ban for their downtown area, or at least a portion thereof. And their enforcement also has been relatively low key. And as Judy mentioned, given what's happened over the last, 48 to 72 hours regarding another matter at the national level, I had a conversation with the police chief earlier today, and we're both of the same page that, minimizing enforcement activities may not be a bad thing to be doing right now, at least in terms of some of these things where people have staked out very strong opinions one way or the other.
Mhm.
That, peer pressure and education can go a long way. So,
Well, those are fair points.
John? This,
Yes,
this Noble.
yes.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Bob in that the enforcement we talked about was really just education and public pressure. People see the signs and they see people with masks. I drove downtown Sunday about 2, and there was a bigger crowd then than there was on Memorial Day, which wasn't as nice a day. But I thought the vast majority of people were wearing masks. There were a couple who weren't, a couple people were carrying them, but I thought it was largely being followed with just that education and public pressure enforcement. So I think that's good. What I hear from people I talk to is that they think the mandatory mask downtown is good. I would be in favor of including the lighthouse parking lot and the walkway down, not the beach, and the fish pier, observation deck in the mandatory mask order. I probably wouldn't include the whole old village. That's a bit much, but I think you could make a case extending it down Main Street and all the way to the lighthouse. That's sort of plus or minus. But I think most people are for it, and I think the selectmen were for it, and they encouraged us to extend it. And we're not, envisioning using people and police to enforce it, but just rely on people getting educated. And I think it's worked pretty well.
Okay,
yeah, John, it's Bob.
yes.
Yeah, one of the other areas that's been talked about at the staff level at a couple times was the transfer station. Just because it's difficult to social distance, when you get out of your car and you're going around to the trunk and taking your bags of trash out, sometimes, the other people are parked right next to you and it's difficult to maintain that 6 foot. So the transfer station was another area for consideration.
I know they have signs that say this is a mask location.
Yeah, this is Noble, John. Yeah, I think they do have a sign, but I still hear people complain that people aren't wearing masks there. I personally think it's pretty simple to add mandatory masks for the transfer facility, and I don't think there would be anybody objecting to that.
I agree. Ron, what do you think about this discussion?
I'd like to see the Lighthouse Beach and the transfer station. The fish pier is going to be a tough one, like Dr. Bob said, the number of people that get up there. I mean, you can't keep your distance up there, and you can't, more than 10 people. So I think that's one to just sit and wait to see what happens, really, what he finds out from the state. But I'm agreeable with the transfer station and Lighthouse Beach.
Well, the parking lot in the stairway.
Yeah. Not
Right.
the beach.
At Lighthouse Beach, right?
The
The overlook and the stairway. Ron, what would be the problem with including the fish pier in the mandatory area, irrespective of whether they have 10 or 30 or 50 or unlimited? Because they're all going to want to crowd to the same spot.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with doing it at the fish pier, but I didn't know whether or not, they're going to be able to get it opened. If, I think Dr. Bob mentioned something about the number of people of 10. You cannot get, distance with 10 up there.
Ed Sheehan. Ed, you want to weigh in on that?
Oh, I'm in favor of the fish pier opening, but the number of people that go up there has got to be controlled with a good fashion. Other than that, I think it's a way to go. They really don't stay there that long once they get to the feel of it, and they'll move along if there's somebody to direct them, I think. But I think that's got to be a.
What about the lighthouse, Ed? Are you okay on that?
The lighthouse, excuse me. At the lighthouse, I think they going to put some kind of system in where they don't have to go down that stairway. You know.
Well, I
You're
think
going to have up and down, or you know, come in on a boat, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess the public is probably going to walk up and down those steps anyhow, Ed.
Right.
There's Noble, do board members have a feeling about the stretch between School Street and the Lighthouse parking lot as to whether that should be included or not?
I would say no. This is John. I would say not at this time. I think I agree with Judy on that.
What's the question?
Whether to include the old village. We had we got a request from a resident there.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the old village, John. It's just Main Street to Shore Road and then Shore Road down to the lighthouse.
Two separate requests.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But this is Noble. I mean, I think this is an incremental thing, so I don't have any problem saying include the lighthouse parking lot and the stairway and the fish pier and the transfer station, and then we could just see how that works and how it's accepted and kind of go from there.
All right.
I'd agree with that.
I'd agree with that too. Noble, would you be willing to make a motion to that effect?
Comment.
Noble?
Yeah, there's no, yeah, I'll make a motion that we include the mandatory mask wearing to include the lighthouse parking lot and the stairway, but not the beach, the fish pier, observation deck, and the transfer station.
Okay.
I'll second that, Ron Broman.
Okay, we have a
second.
We have a second from Ron. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Noble, you have a question?
Oh, is Judy and Bob, I assume, they're on board with that if we want to do it?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, this is Bob, and I was glad to hear you in the motion. Just limited it to the fish pier observation deck, because if not, it's, you know, a nightmare with all the people that are down there all over the place to try to manage. So, yes.
How about the members of the public? Any member of the public wish to comment on this motion before the board votes?
Mr. Chair,
Mm-hmm.
Bob Lear, Alan Ward mentioned my name. The concern of the people that live on Main Street is not necessarily people walking past their house. They walk out of their houses and go down Main Street also. And if you've been down there when it's a nice day like today, even though it's June 1st, there is a whole lot of people and the sidewalks are crowded. And a good deal of it, you have to get out in the middle of the street in order to get around people to maintain distance. So and the fact that it's not necessarily being adhered to on the rest of Main Street, it doesn't seem to me to be a good excuse to just drop the whole thing. And I certainly agree with the overlook at the lighthouse. But that's our position, is that nobody turns around at School Street and walks back into town. They continue on to the light, and the sidewalks are narrow and they're crowded.
Hmm. Well, thank you, Bob. Something to think about more. Anyone else want to comment on the motion we have on the table? Okay, let me call the question. I'll call your name if you're in favor or not. Just advise.
John, it's Bob.
Yep.
Yeah, I just, whenever we have this discussion over masks, I think we have to be cognizant of really what the governor's order regarding masks says. And it says, obviously, masks are mandatory at some point, in some physical indoor locations like grocery stores and pharmacies, et cetera. And they should be worn when physical distancing cannot be maintained. And, as I've said before, I think, and Judy's kind of hinted at the same thing. When you're just walking down the street and you pass someone on the street, in the space of a second or two going in opposite directions, a mask is not necessarily required under those circumstances. And we had the same discussion earlier when we talked about the stairs going down to Lighthouse Beach, that if people are merely going up or down those stairs and they're not stopping and talking and whatnot, in a true fashion, a mask would not be required. So I think we just have to keep that in mind. We're talking about areas, the immediate downtown area where there's large congregations of people moving slowly, looking in store windows. We're talking about the Fish Pier observation deck. We're talking about the transfer station. So I think we just need to be, and this is more education for people that are listening, from home or wherever. The governor has not said you need to wear a mask 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's not what it's been said. So I think, I just wanted to clarify that so we're all on the same page, when the board votes one way or the other, or votes to include or not include a particular area.
All right. We have a motion on the table and it's been seconded. Let's go ahead and call the vote. Noble, are you for or against the proposal?
I'm for the proposal.
Dr. Ward, Alan,
Yes, I'm in favor.
Ron Broman,
In favor.
Ed?
In favor.
Okay, and I'm in favor as well. So we have 5 votes in favor and no votes against. So Judy,
Yes.
we defer to you with preparing the amendment to the original order.
Okay, I will do that ASAP.
Okay, and
And
then
We'll
and then-
create some similar signage to the last ones that we did, and we will get those put up.
beautiful. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your input. And Mr. Lear, thank you for your input as well. We're going to do some more observation down at in the Old Village area and reconsider that later. Let's move down to the last item, which is the Main Street Task Force. The town manager is going to create a Main Street Task Force, and they have requested that there be a Board of Health member assigned to that, and I'm looking for a volunteer.
John, before you go further, can I update you on this?
Sure.
Katie kind of already referred to this when she was talking. So the task force was already created, and in lieu of a Board of Health member, Jill asked me to represent the board. And we did have a quick conference call today.
Okay.
And then we're going to meet downtown tomorrow and just walk the street. So if a member of the Board of Health would like to attend that walkabout, I'm sure would be welcome.
Okay.
But they were trying to pull this together really quickly, and because as Katie referred to, they want to have this for the selectmen's meeting on, I think, June 18th.
Okay.
So they can make recommendations.
That's fine with me, Judy. You'd be the best representative anyhow.
Well, it's really mostly public safety, police and fire and rescue. And then obviously the merchants have strong opinions about different issues as far as the way curbside pickup will look, and you know, how much they can put out on the sidewalks. And so there were, you know, there weren't really a lot of public health concerns except for real public safety issues. So,
Okay,
yeah, I think I can represent you well. And if there's any concerns or questions, I definitely will bring it back to you.
okay. That sounds fine to me. Any comments from any board members?
I just have Ron Broman, I just have a question of Judy. What time are you walking in the?
So
It's tomorrow morning at 11. We're meeting at the town hall parking lot.
Thank you.
Okay, any board member that would like to show up and go with Judy is certainly welcome.
I would Bob, just one word of caution. If you have more than a quorum of the board there, we would have to post it right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
Yeah, that's true.
very
I
good.
just suggested maybe if one or two of you want to attend, great, but
That's a very
have
good
everybody
point.
show up, that could get us into trouble.
Okay,
Because
so
right now there isn't sufficient time to get a posted meeting up.
that's a very good point. Anyone else contemplating joining Judy tomorrow other than Ron?
This is Noble. No, I'm not. But I am. I think Judy's a good person for it. And I have one sort of a procedural question. If a board member has some thoughts about the Main Street thing that they want to bring to Judy so she can bring it to the group, how do we do that? Can we her some things? Is that a violation of discussion or meeting or something?
No, I don't believe so. You can just email me any comments you have, as long as the board doesn't have any type of group discussion about the items. If you just
Right.
send them to me directly, and then I can forward them to the working group or the
Yeah,
task force.
Basically, it's two quick things. And I assume, I mean, the police and fire have to kind of sign off on that whole project. It seems to me kind of upfront. And if they don't agree, I don't see how you can do it. That's what my first thought. And the other thing is Monday on Main, I don't think, as it's been in the past, you could probably have it. It has to be in some modified form where we're not attracting a lot of outside people. Those are my two quick thoughts.
Yep.
Very good. Judy, I don't see any other business for us tonight.
No, the minutes from the last meeting are going to be reviewed by the Board of Selectmen first, and then we will get them for our next meeting, which is tentatively scheduled. Well, it's scheduled for June 15th, unless we need to meet before then. But right now, our next meeting is June 15th.
Okay,
Yeah, John,
yes,
I don't prolong this. I had two quick things.
shoot.
One is, I think we should meet weekly for a while because there's so much going on to follow up with what Judy's doing and what the governor's doing and all that. And it's easy to do because it's basically a phone call. So I would throw out there for other people think that we meet, next Monday. And the other thing quick is, I have brought it before, I think this Festival of the Arts, which is a great big thing, which to me is going to have to be canceled. And I think I don't think we should order it. I think the selectmen should, but is there some way that we can maybe do it next week, but I mean, we can give a sense of, or a recommendation, or some kind of a input to the board, so we don't have to sit through a 3.5-hour meeting to say we also agree to cancel the Festival of the Arts.
What time of the year is that?
It's in early August, I think. It's in
Yes.
August. I think it's early August.
So yeah, it's usually around the second weekend in August.
But it's a very crowded event. They got small tents. The vendors come from not only New England, they come from all over the East Coast, and they go from place to place to place. I just can't imagine from a safety, virus aspect that it's something that you would want to put on. And a lot of the other towns have canceled these types of festivals.
John, it's Bob.
Yes,
We didn't have that specific topic on your agenda for this week, but I would suggest that we could put it on for your next meeting. And then, frankly, I don't think it's out of the realm of the way to do it. If you guys take a formal vote to recommend or to suggest that the Board of Selectmen cancel those events, we can take that and pass that up to them easily, where, you guys wouldn't have to wade through a 3-hour meeting to
Right.
bring it up. We could send it to them. We could send them your vote by memo, basically.
Right, and then it would be a recommendation, but they make the vote and the order. That's,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Chairman Beckley, this is Craig Rowe. Can I make a comment?
Yes, you sir can, Craig.
Oh, hey, John. I like Noble's idea of meeting weekly, but it creates a bit of a problem for the Channel 18 and the town staff to manage that. I think we're trying to limit the amount of meetings that boards are having because you guys actually allow public input. And for us to provide public input, it just adds another layer where we have to have Channel 18 involved, et cetera. And I think it just creates a little bit more of a problem for now. If you have a really important subject that needs to be addressed, then we can work with it. But to have a meeting just to kind of catch up and that type of thing will be a little bit difficult for Channel 18 and the IT staff to handle. Just a little thought there.
Okay, thank you, Craig. That's
yes, this is Noble.
to know. Yes, Noble.
Yeah, no, well, I think we have to go with the capability of the IT business, but I do think in the middle of a pandemic, epidemic, local board of health, which has been given a lot of extra authority, it makes sense for us to meet weekly, for a while. But I'll go with whatever people think.
Well, for right now, Noble, why don't we hold off on the weekly meetings and keep our eyes open and see what emerges. And if we begin to identify some urgent issues, then we'll revisit this on a weekly basis, and then we can talk with Judy and talk more with Craig. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, how much notice do you need to put a meeting on? Say if you wanted a meeting next Monday, when would Judy need to know about it?
We
We
need
have to,
48 hours notice.
so
48?
48, yeah.
So basically Friday.
Yeah, so that's what I was just about to say. I mean, if something critical comes up, and we have 48 hours, there are provisions also in the law that you could have an emergency meeting with basically no notice, but I think all the kinds of things we're dealing with, we'd have enough notice. If there was some action that you guys absolutely needed to weigh in on, we could pull that together fairly quickly.
Okay.
Okay, this is Noble. Yeah, I'm good with that. Would Judy be able to send us an update on the downtown task force?
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
No,
Great.
I could definitely as that it goes on. I'll send you an update.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any additional questions or comments from Board of Health members tonight? How about, can we get a motion to adjourn?
Will we adjourn, Alan?
Can I get a
Second.
second?
Noble, second.
Okay, a motion to adjourn and second. Noble,
Yeah, yes.
you approve the motion? Yep.
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
and I vote yes too. So 5 votes to adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight and your input.
Exactly 1 hour.
Oh, very good. We covered a lot of ground. So
We
thank
did.
you, everyone.